I want you to think about some of the scariest horror scenes you have seen in films. How did you react? Do you cover your eyes, look away from the screen, lean back? If you were anything like me when I was a kid, you would have done everything I just mentioned when watching this scene in The Conjuring. Cindy is banging her head against the closet. Andrea takes her back to bed. Then the knocking continues. Andrea slowly walks towards the closet. There's nothing there. Then a couple of years after that, when I was around 15 years old, one of the first horror games I played was Resident Evil 7. In the introductory section of the game, you play as a man called Ethan Winters, who goes to an abandoned house in Louisiana, looking for his missing wife, Mia. Around half an hour into the game or so, you would find her in the basement and notice she's acting pretty strange to say the least.
Did anyone see you? Did he see you?
Eventually, you will lose sight of her in the basement and go upstairs. Once you try to open this door upstairs, this happens. When I first played this scene, I froze. I tried to find a way out through the bathroom, go out the window, or just get into a ball and do nothing. Nothing changed since I watched The Conjuring a few years earlier. I wanted to look away and cover my eyes, but I couldn't. I had to walk towards the basement door and then keep inching forward and forward until I think the most obvious reason why horror games can be terrifying is when you're reading a horror book or watching a horror film, you're a passive observer, which allows you to detach from the experience compared to horror games, where being an active participant forces you to react to the threat, and which makes you react stronger to the fear. And I mean, yeah, that's true, but I think that's only the tip of the iceberg. There are many decisions in the atmosphere, story, and gameplay system of horror games that are trying to generate fear in the player in specific ways that goes just beyond baseline interactivity. One of the best ways to show this is with Dead Space. One of the best parts of Dead Space is how it always manages to have you on edge throughout its runtime. From a gameplay perspective, the game forces you, like every good survival horror game, to perform under stress. Instead of the usual headshots, in Dead Space you have to aim for the limbs of enemies. The catch, however, is that enemies are rapid, can catch you off guard by being behind a corner or coming out of a vent, and can easily overwhelm you with numbers. Then, when you walk through the Ishimura, you will see messages written with blood on the walls, long dark metal hallways, and steam coming off the ground obscuring your view. On top of this, in an interview with game director Glenn Schofield, he talks about how they used only sound to scare the player.
Because what we were looking for is how can we scare people just with sound? No monsters, no nothing. So, you're in 0G in the game. You get into an airlock and it shuts down, quiet again. Then you open the door and it's just and people are running in the room. They are just trying to get out of that room. It's so awesome. That was such a thrill for us because that was a great way to now realize that we can use sound even more.
It's clear to see how Dead Space creates this audio-visual experience on top of the combat design to make the player feel suffocated by the atmosphere and create a constant anxiety throughout the playthrough. You don't create fear with constant adrenaline, jump scare after jump scare. Safety is incredibly important to make the player feel more scared in the long term. If players must constantly react to threats, it becomes more annoying than scary. This is why so many survival horror games have safe rooms. My favorite being Resident Evil 1. The soft piano creates a gentle melody that is the antithesis of everything you have to experience for the rest of the game. But it gives you something to hold on to and want to return to. When you are down to your last bullets and have no health items left, all I was thinking was, just get to the next safe room, just get to the next safe room. But every time you are in a safe room, you want to stay there forever, you don't want to go out. But eventually you will have to go out. This creates a rhythm of tension and release, because once you release tension, you allow the player to think about the fear rather than only react to it. And this can make it get under your skin a lot more.
If they catch us, they'll give us to him. The man downstairs. Man, very bad. Very, very bad. God. Oh, God.
Darling, I could patch you. Good as... better than new. Why would you do something like that to yourself? Would you rather die than be with me, than die?
How much a horror game can get under your skin is what will determine how long it will stay with you. Outlast was one of the first games after Amnesia that popularized the no fighting, only running or hiding genre of horror games. When I first played Outlast for the first time, I found the main story to be almost like a rollercoaster ride. It shows horrific things, has disgusting moments and scary characters, but I found the game more thrilling than horrifying because while Chris Walker is big and scary, he's not that complicated to run away or hide from. And he basically just wants to kill you because in his mind he's stopping the outbreak and that's it. When I first played the Whistleblower DLC and you encounter Eddie Glaskin for the first time, I felt very uncomfortable. The gameplay didn't change significantly, you still see horrific, disgusting and scary things, but what does change is the psychological horror. Eddie was a patient in the asylum, he had a history of severe childhood abuse from his father and uncle. Later in life he developed violent delusions around the women, marriage and family as a result of this abuse. And after he becomes exposed to Murkoff's experiments, those delusions become even worse. By the time the player encounters him, Eddie has become known as the Groom. He kidnaps male patients, mutilates them, and tries to force them into the role of his perfect bride. So when Eddie chases you, the fear is not just that he wants to kill you, it's that he wants to turn you into part of his fantasy. The fear becomes much deeper and more psychological and scarier as a result. There is a great video by Malletman Comics that goes more in depth on Eddie's story, but a comment that stood out to me from that video gets to the core of why Eddie makes players so uncomfortable. It reads, "It's interesting because Eddie's character is absolutely disturbing, but I think that's because he puts men in the same position as I see women put in horror and in real life. It's the fear of, this person wants to hurt me, they are bigger than me, and they're going to do far worse than just killing me. And yes, gore in horror is definitely awful, but the fear of violation and sadistic pleasure from your pain and or mutilation is another level of disturbing we don't see in horror directed at men often." While I found all of the games I mentioned so far very scary, when I first played them, there are two games I found even more horrifying and for completely different reasons. The first is Alien Isolation. This game can keep you tense because the AI of the Xenomorph is incredibly intelligent. The alien will adapt to your behavior throughout the game. If you like hiding under beds, the Xenomorph will adapt to you and check under beds more. If you keep using distractions like noisemakers, it will catch on and ignore them. And if you use a flamethrower too often, it will become increasingly resistant to it and brush it off. Essentially, the Xenomorph's AI was expertly designed to be unrelenting by adapting to the player constantly. You also cannot run away from the alien at all, as it will immediately hunt you down. This forces you to hide from the alien as it inches closer and closer to you, and in some areas, like the medical bay, this goes on almost uninterrupted with the alien close to you for an hour straight. The complexity of the gameplay also increases the fear factor because, unlike in Outlast, where all you can do is hide or run away, in Alien Isolation you must also deal with androids and humans on top of the Xenomorph while managing your resources. Essentially, you have to complete difficult tasks under high pressure to succeed. This makes the experience even more interactive and the player even less passive. For me, Alien Isolation is a peak of horror in games solely from a gameplay perspective. The xenomorph doesn't invoke the same psychological dread as Eddie, but it is still terrifying because, just like Dead Space, it turned the dial on the audio-visual aspect of game design up to 11.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you. Waiting for you to come to see me. But you never do. And so I wait.
The other game is Silent Hill 2, but rather than explaining it to you, I will show you why this game gets under my skin so much. And that's it, nothing else happens. The first time I played this part, I immediately went on YouTube to search it up because I had no idea if that was supposed to happen. The reason why I find this scary is the same reason I find the liminal spaces or the uncanny valley to be scary. Because it feels wrong, but you don't know what the threat is. I think sometimes making you jump without something jumping out on you can be far more effective because it's more restrained. And that is the best part of Silent Hill's horror, is that it can scare you when absolutely nothing is going on. About halfway through the game, you will enter the Nightmare Hospital. In the environment, you see bathtubs overflowing with acid, rooms filled with chains, enemies that will convulse before attacking you, and, in general, an environment that doesn't quite make sense. Around halfway through the area, you will reach a rusty hospital bed draped over with a white sheet. In a side drawer, you can find a Polaroid that says, "No one knows." From the bed comes a strong heartbeat and muffled breathing. Then you exit the room. If you didn't know, Silent Hill is a horror series where the town itself reflects the characters' inner lives, their guilt, trauma, grief, and fears, and they are transformed into monsters and nightmare-like spaces, which is why the horror often feels more personal. For me, the second playthrough of Silent Hill 2 was far more impactful than the first because you realize that everything from the start of the game, from the buildings to the letters to the enemies, were all pointed towards the fact that James killed Mary. It was always there in front of you, but most players don't even realize until it's revealed almost at the end of the game. And I think this is a good example to explain why horror games are so terrifying, because at the end of the day, like I mentioned jokingly at the beginning, it is about interactivity. The reason why they scare me more is because I do have to actively participate. But I think the bottom of the iceberg is that games in general literally put you in someone else's shoes. You are not just seeing them, you are them. Horror games make you walk towards the door in Resident Evil 7, they make you aim carefully while panicking in Dead Space, they make you leave the safety of the safe room or hide from the alien while knowing it is learning from you. It makes you run from Eddie Glaskin while understanding that being called means something way worse than just dying. And in Silent Hill, it makes you keep moving through a world that seems to know something about the character that you don't fully understand yet. Horror games are terrifying because they don't just show you fear, they make you live inside it.